All right, friends, let's talk peppermint oil. For real, this is one of the most glorious oils we have. I use it all the time, but I have to admit, I understood the idea of peppermint oil many years ago when I would get it as a no-name brand oil from the store where I had no idea how it was farmed, no idea what had been added to it, no idea about the level of purity. Having worked with doTERRA, I now understand these things better, what it means to build a sustainable farm that actually produces oil that is clean and clear for the body. So myself, I've used peppermint in a ton of different ways. I tend to have a lot of excess heat in my body, so it's helped me cool things down from a number of different vantage points. Sometimes that means mixing it with some coconut oil and applying it to my spine. Sometimes that means making a capsule myself, putting it in a little vegetable glycerin capsule and ingesting it to cool down excess heat in my digestive system. Having worked with traditional Chinese medicine for many years, I have come to understand that excess heat is often something that needs to be balanced in the body, and peppermint has been great for that. It's also badass to have peppermint around just to make a fast peppermint tea. You're dealing with thousands and thousands of peppermint leaves in one bottle, so one drop in some hot water and you all of a sudden have this beautiful tea that's instant. I've also used it to help with headaches. Sometimes I get headaches around the back of my head from stress or dehydration, and I found just the application of a bit of peppermint oil and the uplifting sort of vibe that it has, it will clear the pain right away. Totally bonkers. I've also used it for burns, sometimes getting a burn with some hot water or cooking. Right away, some peppermint and maybe a little lavender too has totally reversed the experience of the burn. I've had it heal up super quick. So I'm gonna throw a link at you to grab a bottle yourself. Peppermint is a great place to start. If you haven't worked with essential oils in this direct way, it's super awesome. Check out the link and enjoy. Welcome to the Finding Free Thought podcast.
This podcast is funded by you. To support our work, please consider making a purchase from our Free Thought shop. Check out my campsite at campsite.bio/goodresonance, where you can follow me on social media, make a donation, subscribe to my newsletter, check out my essential oils offerings, and grab my restorative teas ebook. Please subscribe to the audio version of this podcast on Apple and Podbean and the video version on YouTube and Rumble.
Be sure to check out my 6-episode sci-fi comedy series, Simon Esler's Dystopian Imaginarium, along with my 60-minute comedy special, Theorize About Conspiracies, and my 3-season hit show, Worlds Within, all on Rise TV. And don't forget to hit up SimonEsler.com for all of my work, to join my newsletter, for links to purchase my NFTs, make donations, and follow me on all social media. You can also join my locals community, Team Free Thought, at teamfreethought.locals.com, where I'll be offering subscribers previews of new sketch comedy material, documentary work, and private broadcasts for supporters only. As a member of Team Free Thought, $5 a month gets you all of that plus a 15% discount at the Free Thought shop. What up, friends? This week on the Finding Free Thought podcast, we have Alexis of Ascension Diaries. She's a good friend of mine, known her for years, does amazing work, and is truly just an authentic, bright, and beautiful being. We had such a great discussion. We really got deep into the science of neutrinos, the nitty-gritty of human evolution, the pain, the discomfort, and what it means to step into our inner authority and to step into understanding ourselves more deeply through solitude, through practices that strengthen our bodies, just bodybuilding and contextualizing health in all sorts of really interesting ways. I'm sure you'll love the discussion. I'm going to hit you with her bio, and then we're going to jump into the episode. Alexis of Ascension Diaries has a BA in psychology and sociology. She has interest in mediums, channels, and EDs. She practices intuitive card readings with willing people and studies astrology in many forms. The esoteric world is opening up her soul, and her daily work is to discuss changes in solar weather on the societal well-being. Check out her work and enjoy the episode. Word. Welcome, everyone, to the Finding Free Thought podcast. We have a very exciting episode today. Today we welcome Alexis of Ascension Diaries, and we are super pumped to have her on the show. Welcome, my friend. Lovely to see your face. Glad to have you here.
Thank Thank you for having me. I'm glad we were able to finally do this. Thank you for bringing me on and letting me join your intelligence over here in your messages. I can't wait to collab today.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot to talk about. And, we've known each other for quite a while. So it's interesting, the way we have gathered our own information on this whole ascension process and what it means to evolve in consciousness. So why don't we just start with where you're at with Ascension Diaries? Like, what have you been building with Ascension Diaries? Where's the focus, and some of the research you found, and how it's sort of blossomed for you?
Okay, so for sure, I want to bring up the fact that recently I've been charged with the confidence to say that I'm starting guardian training. And kind of what I do is more so for training the guardians or supporting the guardians of Earth and guardians of benevolence and of innocence on Earth, and then reaching that out into sort of the galactic space. And understanding space weather over the last like 6 years has taught me a lot about human behavior, and as well as the trajectory of many other people's ascensions and their conscious waking up. So what really has been coming back and what's becoming more obvious to me is the physical shifts that are happening in our realms now, and the physical miracles and physical signals that seem to be coming from the earth to inform us, as well as the physical signals coming from the sun that are impacting us. But it's harder to see those things, even though people do see like the changing of the color and the light of the day. People will have started to notice that more so changing on a daily basis, and it does correlate with the space weather and solar weather, so that's been great. But now there's more need to understand what grid working is, and to activate and actualize their sort of galactic personality and their meta human, beyond earth human personality, so they can sort of ground in what they really are and why their soul fragment is here. And also they need a team, and people need encouragement, and they need someone to keep them sort of on a schedule, at least kind of keep their momentum going and hold safe space for them. So that's what I've really been cultivating more. And so now I just tell everyone to go to my patreon.com/ascension diaries and sign up at any amount, and then I can give you that picture basically. And through that, also joining our Telegram group, so we can do the basically 24/7 space weather and like miraculous clouds and colors and animal visitations and orbs and all these other things that are correlating and weaving in very nicely, which I knew they would, but now it's like really coming to the forefront. And soon we're going to just be seeing people showing like, oh, this crystal just like burst out of my backyard today. Like, what's that about? And I'm just looking forward to that. I think that's coming soon too. And like holes to the inner earth and these fun things. So it's getting fun.
Yes, very exciting. And I like how you're talking about like this preparation of guardians, right? Because there is this notion of things falling apart. There's the collapse of the old systems and the collapse of the old ways, and this calling for people who are going to guide us into a new structural way of living. And I think like both internally and externally, right? Like we're restructuring ourselves internally and undoing some of the harmful momentum I think modern society has installed in us, I guess is probably the best way to put it.
And it is momentum, which sucks. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you put it that way.
Yes.
uh,
Well,
yeah.
we talk about this often, right? Where it's like the momentum of ancient human conditioning and how that's just naturally something we're going to have to contend with. That
Right.
the old way of human being, and human design talks about this in pretty extensive detail in terms of uh, what is it, the cross of planning, right? We're coming to the end of the cross of planning.
And 2027 is sort of the beginning of a new era. So everything that was
Okay.
built and built up, and sort of all this industry and industrialized and systems and sort of the background frequencies of that cross of planning is going to be crumbling away, and it has been for some time. All these things, like, the momentum is
Okay.
slow and steady, but yeah, sort of we don't know what it's going to look like, but even a few hundred years, essentially, I guess it's after the last people who've been born before 2027 are kind of gone, there will really be sort of the immersion into the new era. So it's
Right.
we're ending what got started sort of in the 1600s. So
Yeah, so in the 1600s, I guess there
Wow.
was this notion that the earth had to be built through like mental, strategic living and planning. Like it was about the mind being strategic. And that's how we were able to get the society we currently have. But so the falling away of this and the arrival of new types of humans and the changing of the current humans, like it really has to do with arriving in the body and letting the body guide instead of the mind. And this is like a really tricky thing to do. It's really like it's a tough thing to shift from mental living. And I don't even just mean on the individual level. I guess this is what I meant when I really said momentum. That on Earth there's this like mental momentum, this momentum of the human collective living from the mind. And now there's this like awkward transition of the whole human collective having to go into the bodies instead. And it's like super weird and awkward.
Yes.
What
That does make sense.
what have you personally found in terms of like embodiment, like as you have moved deeper into the experience of ascension unfolding around you? Like to what extent has your journey been embodiment versus those sort of mental strategic ways of living?
Yeah, I think a part of the embodiment was the conscious and sort of mental. It was initiated mentally for me, knowing what needed to be done to basically save my soul and save my momentum from continuing to feed the parasitic structure that was disempowering me and my bloodline, basically, my whole family, all of the people I ever knew. And I said, I really do need to step into this moral integral place that I know myself and just start making my choices from there, not feeding systems and things that were obviously feeding the evil as well. And I wanted them to starve. I wanted them to be done from me. I didn't want to feed them anymore. So in the embodiment factor, I really had to work on completely removing myself from my life, replanting myself in a new life within a whole, with no matrix support, basically no backups. It was really just a cut and dry sort of like, that's it, I'm done, that's my style, that's how I did it. I did the same thing with my diet. And then over the years that has changed, and that was sort of the biggest part of where I noticed the energies were moving into more an embodied state, was when my gut was starting to react and talk to me more and not accept certain frequencies of foods into my body because they weren't matching me, and it was causing all these problems and making it very obvious like that my system inside me had changed, my body had changed, and that I wasn't operating the same, I wasn't able to operate the same. And so another major part of that was moving into totally vegan diet and completely removing any harm from my diet the best I could, to clarify that and just get clarity on that, because I had been totally, I had no idea. I had no idea. I had no connection to what I was eating and so on. So that was a big deal. And like to clarify the gut is to clarify that instinctual gut knowing that we should be relying on much more, but there has been so much toxicity and attack on that area, that intelligence, that lower dantian, that brain, in a way, all those neurons and so on were being totally poisoned to death. And that was a big part of the embodiment portion of my growth. And it took a long time because the body is the slowest. And I got told that over and over, the body and the physical realm is the slowest moving. So everything's going to show up slower. You're going to have way more time to kind of work your way through this. And over the years of doing that, I ended up reintegrating a few things into my diet in a totally different way and at a totally different pace and rate as well. It really was me just listening, and it was nice to get to listen. And even since then, I've learned about parasites as well and how they've had a major impact on a physical and non-physical level. of our bodies and on this sort of human earth game that we're playing, we could put it that way, and how important that was to the purge of the older system and of these parasitic behaviors and of the types of foods and activities that I was doing with my time. It had a lot more to do with what the parasites were wanting and then versus what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so easy as well finally to get that clarity. I just needed one regiment of whatever parasite cleanse capsules I chose, and it showed me immediately all of the shifts that I could make in my diet and my lifestyle that were freeing me from I'm assuming these parasites in my body. And it was incredible. And my partner, had the same experience, his to a way more extreme degree, because he had traveled to Asia recently and had been infected and not realized. And so we've been going through that, and just that physical process and getting more in the body and taking better care of the body, and as it is a temple and so on, and integrating those purer lessons, and even just knowing ascended masters and how they really were more of just an embodied force that was clean, clear, physically walking, sitting, non-reacting to, and being open to receiving just the very basics on the daily, and having that very grounded self-love and grounded body awareness. It really made an impact on me, and it's helped me a lot with staying in the game. Because again, people who go into the spiritual realm, they sometimes can lose themselves. Their bodies become weak, their power becomes almost non-existent, and their effectivity in the physical plane, which is what we incarnated into to be the like actionable strength and power, is falling away. And I'm sure for some people that's totally the plan, and I'm fine with that. I'm not trying to say that's bad, but I'm saying some people don't want that. Some people don't want to be that weak, and they don't understand how connecting more with spirit is making them weaker in the physical world. And they can't do or actualize their dreams or the visions that they're seeing. Like they're either too scared or too weak. And I've had that problem. That's why I'm talking about it. I'm relating. And it's been a great lesson on what tools are really here for us, and what tools have been installed into like our hologram for generations and a long time to keep us grounded here, and to keep our vibration at a certain rate where we can be angelic and physically here. And that's been a whole very fascinating thing to get to watch the progression of as I like matured into adulthood too, and did this diary in the process. So I've learned so much, and I feel like it can help, and I have been helping a lot of people just get all of their bodies, their physical, their non-physical bodies in alignment to where they remember and where they feel they should be. Because it's like that instinctual knowing, that like northern, always pointing north, that source, where you're going. And those obstacles really frustrate the free soul. And so I've done what I can and learned so much to like pull all those toxins out of us, like the heavy metals and the plastics and the parasites, and lower vibrational thoughts, and like cleaning everyone's colon, like literally getting the shit out of us. So
Yes.
I've learned all these things, and it's been a part of it. It's a massive part of it. I feel very empowered by the physicality of this whole thing. So I'm grateful.
Yeah. I love it. I love the way you put that in terms of people who are so connected to spirit that it weakens them and they lose their effectiveness on this plane. I think that's, you've really identified a major issue, I think, with spiritual communities and emerging from sort of vague new age concepts that don't strengthen us as physical human beings.
Yeah.
It's a major problem. It really makes me think about the primary health system. She's talking about moving to a new place and shifting your diet and the way those things build upon each other.
It matters, it matters. Each of us have a very unique frequency, and that frequency is for like certain places and certain people. And it will be easier to live our lives if we're in the right environment and eating the right diet. Then we'll be able to hear and listen to ourselves. Ideally, easier. Nothing's really easy, of course. But
and even express our DNA too. I just thought of when you said that environmental is a huge part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then meet
True.
the right people and live your purpose when all of these sort of things are aligned. So yeah, being in a healthy body needs to happen to a certain extent.
It's true though, but I'll admit I did not fully grasp the extent to which sheer willpower just can't get you there. It just can't. If you don't
I've
have
been there.
Me
yeah,
too.
it's like
Yeah.
where you're just like, I'll just power through. But if you
Why
don't
isn't
have
it working?
environment and diet correctly set up, there is no amount of willpower that will bring you into that next stage. And so, what I think is really exciting that has become clearer to me, like through human design specifically, is how like neurotically specific everyone's environment and diet really are. That some people need
Yeah.
to be in mountainous places, but some people need to be in like city markets. And some people, like people really have like deep hyper specific needs that are tied to their genetics. And that genetically speaking, if you're someone who needs to be in more of a marketplace environment and you're like living out in the mountains, then that's actually going to be whack for you, believe it or not, even though there is this vague idea that like mountains are more spiritual for everyone, period.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's really about like your authority, like where it takes you and where you feel you need to go. Because I know you guys took like a big risk and you uprooted and you chose like a totally different life path. Because you were mobile for quite a while, right?
Yeah, we were mobile for a whole year living in a vehicle, basically.
Yeah, fascinating. And I think taking those risks can be painful for people. Completely
Yeah.
changing once it's so painful, right? Once like, oh shit, I've been living my life totally wrong. Like you just like you have to take those leaps, and like you said, for you're like this where you're like, I just make drastic changes, like you're a sort of cold turkey person, so to speak. Whereas some people, yeah, it might need to be a little more gradual, just depending on their makeup. But
I've learned to appreciate that type of way to live your life too now, for sure. Being like, you know what, maybe I'll wait a little bit for a more comfortable option. And I have that feeling now because cutting, that was like my youthful, like, yeah. And now I'm like, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
I hope I don't have to. Yeah.
well,
It can be
Once is
right for
good.
some people.
yeah, some people that may be the way. But it's also,
Yeah.
to bring it back to what you were saying, is that the body, there's no speeding the body up. The body takes the time that the body takes. We have
Yes.
7-year cellular cycles that we
Yeah.
have to just acknowledge. And if you want to change your genetics and change your whole body, well, it's probably going to take you at least 7 years. It's like,
Yeah.
Well, even developmentally, it's like when we look at like psychoanalysis
yes.
and all of that, it's like, well, we do look at the birth to 7 age range developmentally, and then we look at the 7, and it's all in 7 years.
That's right. There's a reason why even Jordan Peterson is talking
Everything-
1 to 7. Like
all the psychologically cellular, it's a 7-year cycle.
And that's so frustrating, right? Because when you find, I wonder, have you had this with clients then, like who they find this new information and they see the changes that need to be made, but they're struggling to reconcile the true time it's going to take?
Yeah. All the time, because that's the beauty of a consciousness expansion, is realizing that your consciousness can travel through all dimensions, all densities, like every experience you can fathom in your imagination. That's the conscious freedom. But then again, what are you doing? You're in this one body that's only going so fast and doing a thing. Like people want to leave. That's a lot of it, is like they're like ready to pop right out the top and say peace to the meat suit. And that problem is, it's a relatable feeling. And on days when they turn CERN on the 5th, I was having that feeling again. It was like, I just want to bye, like, see ya, like just pop out the roof, like, because I feel like I know how to die or leave this body, but also like that's not the goal, like I was mentioning earlier. And it does mess with people. It messes with me still. And it's easy to admit because I laugh at myself while it's happening, but also I enjoy the process of that feeling because I know it means there's a metamorphosis happening. There's something going on that is likely not just me. And that's why I have a community now, because I'm like, okay, I just felt like dying. How about you guys? And usually the feedback is, oh my gosh, thank you for saying something, because it is a big topic to talk about too. Like, having feelings so deep like that. But to be validated that you're not the only one. And maybe this is also an environmental thing that's happening to us instead of our own, soul is deciding to leave and hates it here. Like there's a lot more, at least through the study too, showing how our physical bodies are being manipulated through frequencies all the time. And that's sort of becoming more public because I think that threat is lessening. But when it was not public, that threat was probably the highest. So, we've endured in our own bodies many, many, many attempts to block and lock and imprison us on a multidimensional level and also on a physical level. And overcoming those barriers has been a big part of this, like we were talking about. And I struggle to, I don't know, I struggle to relate to people who don't talk about the hard times and I don't talk about having a body, because I love having a body and I always have. And I love being here and I love the idea of community and of all of the transformations we're going to experience. And to just have those moments where you don't love it, where you want to die, is so, it's like such a drastic feeling. And I really wanted to get on top of that and be a voice in that too, because these transitions are extreme and our souls like rattling around sometimes, just thrashing for change and for new experiences, for expansion. And it's not even just us, like it could literally be all the towers in your city that day is causing you to do that. And it's like the rabbit hole just kept going and kept going, but really it was empowering to know like spiritual tools even that people use to keep in their body, to keep their sovereignty, to keep their aura firm and like strong. And pumping the heart, getting your cardiovascular up is a way to literally thicken that field around you. And I call it the armor of God as well. For people maybe that might help, but even in those moments where you're like, I'm feeling weak, I don't feel myself, I'm on this spiritual journey, what's going on? I find that these tools are helping. And yeah, I get a lot of clients who have been pushed out of their bodies, had been dealing with sleep paralysis. I just had one before this, all of these traumatic events to try and convince someone that they're not in control of their own body. It's like this grand illusion. And it's just as many illusions they can throw at us to try and say that they're more powerful than you are, or something outside of you is more powerful than yourself. And that's been another big part of that learning curve. And like the developmental 7-year cycle and everything like that, I went into psychology to learn all these things too. And even brain development, like people's brains aren't even fully actualized in their usage until they're in their late 20s, a lot of it. And some they're now saying into your 30s a little bit. That's solidification. So if you think you even know somebody or you know yourself before you're like 35, it's a joke. And that's why I made it a diary too, because I knew, I was like, this isn't going to be me forever. I'm going to keep growing and changing. And I just want to track the whole process for my own research, because the chaos of manipulation between all of our developmental like pitfalls, like they just sneak in all these little like weird things to throw you off because they know our development so well as well, to like just disempower you in all these little moments of your brain and physical development from 0 to 35. And it's been wild. So yeah, even keeping up with that myself while going through it, and my own Saturn return, it's been like I've just been trying my best to stay on top of my own body and like how slow it does need to go when I'm not going that slow. But I know I have to, like I have to go this slow, and I'm reveling in it now more and enjoying the minutia of life and like the slower pace, because I've tried to go lightning fast and I have succeeded. And like I said, my body just wasted away. I was just losing density and mass and strength like crazy. And I was like, as an athlete, I was like, this can't be, I can't do this. I'm not going to live and be a great, happy grandma if I do this to my body now. I have to just form and fortify And some of my very good friends who live here in Sedona, I followed them before I moved here, and they always talked about going to the gym. They always talked about lifting weights so you could actually build more body to install your own soul into your cells and build more of your physical mass and this density so you could install more of your light body and your soul to be here and just be like a brick house. And these guys are, and I just love that about them. And they showed me that side of the spiritual path too, which I'm grateful for. So I'm trying to go back to the gym now and do more of that because I miss it and I'm ready. I'm ready. But living in Sedona, it was like, I don't even want to take on more presence here because the presence here I am is like, it's so intense. So it's been tricky. It's been like a journey. I've almost been like regrowing my body in Sedona's vortexes too, because it's been so weird and so fast. Like things in time here moves at a different rate. Then it's just been, it's like playing a game of catch up lately. I don't know if you guys have felt that way, like you're catching up, almost like your spirit had to come back and like catch your body up a little bit.
Oh
That's what
yeah.
I'm noticing a lot.
Yeah. I mean that's my experience right now for sure, is like
Okay.
trying to get my body oriented around where I now know I need to go. And I love that idea of like going to the gym to make more room for spirit, for your spirit and for your like essence and your consciousness. That's a really great way of looking at it, because that gym culture in a mainstream way is so not like that,
True.
right?
Yeah, people think, oh, you're vain and
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, it's a really great way to reframe it. I love that. That like the more physical strength that you're building, the more space you're making for yourself to arrive, and that's a really that's honestly right now inspiring for me. I'm like, I'm gonna go to the gym like right now.
Yes.
Amazing.
It's interesting, like thinking about the way we're affected on a daily basis and the way that we can be impacted. Like all of a sudden you can have a day where you're like, wow, I feel so awful today. And like a couple things. One, the importance of what you're saying of showing people how ugly the journey is. That anyone who's trying to show you this sort of like beautiful pop like version of the spiritual journey, and they're hiding the shady, sketchy, difficult elements of it that are like really hard
The
to
pain.
work through. Yeah, the horrible pain, basically. There's a lot of that, I think, on social media especially, where they've just figured out a way to attract people, to get a consumer base like built up, and that's worked in a sort of formulaic way. But they're really not showing people that if you're not in pain and uncomfortable, you're probably not really working through it. If it's all like joy and light and like high vibrations, then there's likely a ton of avoidance going on, which can really escalate. I'll say that personally for me, that any area in my life where I was just avoiding working on that area, it's hit me like a ton of bricks later on. It's just the way it is, which
Me too.
Yeah, like it just is the way it is, and it's fine. Like I think it's good to not like be hard on yourself for those aspects, but it's true that in the sort of spiritual communities, the network of new age and spiritual communities that are out there right now, it's so important that people get into that like ugliness. And you talk about this all the time, that sometimes there's a struggle to find people who are really being truthful about the pain of it and the struggles. And human design has brought us to that as well, I think, in a really real gritty way. And you were talking about like being affected regularly, having days where you're like don't want to live, or you want to leave your body. And I've come to appreciate that a lot through human design as well, in terms of they talk about being undefined and open, how you have certain chakras that are more open and more undefined, and so you're more open to conditioning. And it's so subtle and actually quite beautiful, the extent to which we impact each other. Like you could literally be riding the subway with a stranger who affects one of your open auras and brings you to a certain experience or a certain perspective or a shift in your experience of yourself or the world that can become really difficult to contend with. And you might not have any idea that it's literally just because you took a train ride with a stranger who conditioned you for 40 minutes and that affected you somehow,
But even the conditioning happens before that, because the conditioning happens like in the first few years of life.
Yeah.
Being in the conditioning field of society.
all of those other people.
So, yeah. So then when you get in aura, it's already your own programming that shows up.
Yeah.
Because of the other person. It's not really their fault.
No, not in that way at all. Yeah.
Your sort of unique design and exactly where your mind goes when you want to like have those experiences. Yeah. I think it comes down to knowing what's you and what's not you.
Yeah.
And how do you know that, right? So human design can help you see how unique you are, because you can say, now this is me. This is my definition. This is where I can trust myself. Everything that I have open, I can experience, I can gain wisdom. We all have access to everything. But that's not something you can trust, because you don't have that all the time. You only have it from a person or a transit. So you can see the conditioning field might take up space there. Your mind might go, oh, I need to have a defined heart space. I need that because I don't have it. So then it starts to make up, your mind will start to fill the space of the openness. And then you get all these stories and...
Yeah, like with the heart, that's one of the spaces where it has to do with like making promises, right? Is that the
ego? So like you kind of, if you don't have an open heart, if it's undefined, rather, or if it is open or undefined, you might be someone who like makes a lot of promises and struggles to keep them. You might really feel like you want to prove you might feel like you want to prove yourself a lot. It's pretty, about 70% of the population or so has an undefined or open heart. So a lot of the population is out there trying to prove. I know it. You know it.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. The broken promises.
Do you guys have really defined hearts?
Undefined.
Undefined. Yeah.
Undefined?
Yes.
I have an undefined, and then I looked up my sidereal human design. I don't know if you've ever done that, but I was like, okay. And my sidereal is defined. And I was like, yes, I'm just like Trump, because that's what my human design book says for as a celebrity with a defined heart. They're Donald Trump has a defined heart. And I read that years ago. And now I'm like, wow, I mean, I can see how that serves a person, and they cannot be swayed. They're just doing their thing. Like it's coming right out of them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
I feel you. And undefined, it's amazing. That was so smart, because I mean, I really hope that this conversation encourages more people to look up their own charts and check if they're, what's defined and what's undefined, and then see where they're like seeking always, and like almost like an open door policy, like this energy is just coming in and through, versus what just like is just you and isn't going anywhere.
Yes.
It's so empowering.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, once you get into the nuances of it, and you can look at like the transits that are coming up. Okay, so we've got like, this one transit that's coming in the stars in the next like couple days. You've even been very strategic with that as well, because some days you'll be like, why do I have so much energy right now? Like I have so much energy to get stuff done. And be like, oh, we're in this transit, sweet, but I only have 2 days. And it's like, I gotta get so much done,
But that's still a mental decision, so it's not gonna work. But
true.
Yeah, it's funny how you can't really decide what you're gonna do with your body. Like you were saying,
I'm surprised.
your body's going.
How do you follow the transits and connect that to the human design? Because I have not made that like personal, I don't understand that part. Would you mind telling me a little?
Similar to astrology. So it would, if the moon, it would be in a certain gate. And so then you would just sort of overlap the current transit, all of the planets and the gates that they're in. And then it would overlap with your birth body graph. And then you would see, it might connect you with some like educational channels where you get to experience the whole channel when you normally don't have it at all. Or maybe one of the gates, like maybe the moon lights up a channel, maybe it connects you with something. So you have something innate that's natural, but it's only a hanging gate. And then a transit can complete it and give you a sort of a life force energy, essentially. So
I always wondered about that. Okay, this is good.
Yeah, so it means that through, how much time is it? Like everyone experiences the full human design chart throughout the span.
Throughout a year.
Yeah, so a whole year, you're going to get everything activated at some point or another.
At one point.
Yeah.
Right? So it's going to light up all the channels and chakras to a certain extent. So each year, you're really getting to experience all the different parts of your openness being imprinted by the stars, essentially,
That's
and the
beautiful.
planets.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite magnificent, actually. And it's amazing, too, I think, the genetic imperative piece of it, right? Where wherever we have openness, we are genetically attracted to people who have that defined. And so there is a genetic imperative that's driving us as a species. It makes human design into this incredible, like, collective puzzle, because we're actually seeking out people that complete our design because our genetics want to drive in that direction, of course, right?
Right.
So, we've started studying this in our family, and we just got all our family charts printed, and we've mounted them on the wall so that we can study them with the kids, so that you can see, when we're together as all four of us, how are we affecting each other's auras? Where are we in each other's openness, and how does our definition play into each other? It's quite fascinating. Like, for example, we recently realized that when Amanda is just with the kids, that they're really seeking, like, emotional release through her, just based on how their designs affect each other, So it might just be, like, more emotionality when it's the three of them. And we did notice this, like...
There's a lot of pressure to emote.
Yeah.
And, like, connection there. And there's, like, nothing on
Nothing. So
there.
then I'll take the kids out, and it's the three of us, and they're, like, totally chill, like, neutral as we move through the city. And it's just not like that. I noticed it the other day, and I messaged her. I was like... For some reason, when you're not here, they're completely different. And now we're starting to really understand how behavior can be drastically changed according to who you're being conditioned by, especially for children.
Think about it this way. Like, most of us grew up in a family, and that's a conditioning field too.
Right.
That's probably one of the strongest ones that I can think of, because when you come in there, it's like a force. It's not just two individuals. Once you get out of two individuals, you form like a penta, and it becomes like a different organism, basically. So that is a very intense force. So the conditioning is going, and then, I guess really what happens is as a child, you become conditioned to be what you're not. And you start to live from that place, essentially.
But that's what makes
you end up having
kind of ugly to undo some of this, right? Where you're like, oh my God, I've been living my not self this whole time, and I have to reverse that, and that's going to be painful. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take 7 years.
At least.
And I can't be around any of the people who were conditioning me, so I can figure out what is mine and what was theirs.
Yes.
And that's hard too, because you want to be with those people, but I'm literally physically got torn away from those people, and I'm finally unraveling. Like, that's not me. Like, why do I do this? Like, and then I feel bad because I'm like, wow, like my parent is struggling with this, and I wonder where, what are they doing with that? Like, where did that come from? And I start getting curious, obviously, as a therapist. I'm like, let's go back and fix it, because I want, we want our families to be in bliss and like cohesive. And now we're like, okay, we need to look at everybody's charts, and you can't be doing any of this on this day, because and then you have to take on all the emotions being projected through you because that's you. And it's like, do you want to be that all the time? Obviously not. So what are we going to do about that? And I love this. I never even considered how effective that could be. So I'm really glad we're talking about this, because I'm learning rapidly listening to you guys.
Well, it's true. You do bring up a great point about solitude, right? Like, solitude has become a staple in our family because of this.
Oh, good.
Right?
I think it's a good thing.
I wish
like
I had that.
It's good for everyone.
Everyone needs it.
And it's not necessarily always socially acceptable. And like you said, there are things that we want for our loved ones, but we need to be alone so we know who we are. I hate being alone.
And you're like activating their gates and making them be weird and around you specifically. And it's like,
absolutely.
And
a lot of us, you were saying as a young kid, and I know my siblings and even myself, like getting away with your friends, like when you're a teenager or even a young kid, you're like, my family is insane. Like they're and then you're a different person, and I've heard my family members say, you're a different person when you're with so-and-so, when you're with so-and-so. And it's
right.
kind of an insult. And you're like, am I a horrible person because I'm not the same everywhere I go?
Yeah,
felt
like, am
that-
I living a lie? Like,
Yeah.
what's going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, you're like, am I have a personality problem? Like,
Yeah,
what-
it's true. My family would make the same accusation. They'd be like, "Why do you treat your friends like family? Like, why are you with them? Are you trying to replace your family?" I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. But it's true. It's like, for some reason, whatever conditioning field my friends put me in, it was just, I preferred it, obviously, because I was
Yeah.
trying to find out who I was, and I wanted to know what it was like to not be conditioned by my family. All of this is very natural. It is the way it should be. And it's why we're very intense with our kids, where we're like, when are you getting your alone time today? When are you getting it today? Because you need your alone time, or you're not going to know who you are.
I need to have that same conversation with my roommate here. When is your alone time today? Because as Aquarius moon, I feel like, yeah, I absolutely love being by myself because I got a lot to work through. Like there's a lot coming
Yeah.
through all the time. So I'm
Yeah.
very comfortable by myself, but it's like the other inputs and the
Yeah.
questions. I'm like, why do you have so many questions around here? And why do you have so many needs? And I got to check up my are now colliding,
Yeah.
you know, are
Yeah.
collaborating, and why I'm like that, like action decision maker. And I'm like, I'm a Libra, guys. I don't know why I got to make so many decisions here, but hey, I guess I'm doing okay. Like throw that gavel down and I do what I can. But yeah, with friends and everything, it's been such a friggin' miracle because I really thought there was something wrong with me. And even around other friends and people, I didn't get it. But then you do. Once you start getting your own frequency, you start emitting your truth. And then people who are attracted to that genetically are coming through to like fulfill and follow through with that too, which is really neat. I like that.
Exactly.
It
Yeah, it's
gives
funny,
a new
like-
perspective of like who you're with and why. And
Oh,
now I'm
yeah.
going to be like, give me your chart. I want to see your chart before we hang out today. Like, gonna check on that.
I know. Someone needs to make a human design dating app where you can see someone's chart first and be like, all right, wait a minute here. I have an open route. I don't want any defined
mental
routes.
decision.
Of course, it's not really living human design.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
like,
you have a defined heart and I have a defined heart. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
yeah, you know, it's interesting. Like when Amanda and the kids leave and I'm by myself, it's like my whole life like slows down because they all have defined routes. I have an undefined route, so I experience a lot of pressure, right? Just naturally, the conditioning from being with them, there's pressure on my route. And so the pace of moving through the day it's informed by that pressure. And then so when they're gone, it's like I'm in a different timeline sometimes because I don't have that root pressure. But also, it can be a little bit more difficult for me to get things done in an expedient way because I have to find my own way to move forward through the day without it being a response to that pressure. So that's like one of the things in my solitude that I've had to sort of sort through. Be like, okay, now that I'm working on my own, how do I keep pace in a totally different field of experience than when I'm like working in the space with the family and like editing and trying to get stuff done while I'm working with the kids or helping Amanda or doing whatever. It really does change your experience, and it gives you like, it deepens your appreciation of human connection so much. You know, that we just, it's like I was saying earlier, we impact each other so deeply in a way that we can't even conceive of. Like, we're all sort of mentally exploring it right now, but we don't even really understand the extent to which that we're impacted by a single other human being's presence. It's so like magnificent in its scope and its depth. It's quite amazing, actually.
When they were telling us to be 6 feet apart or whatever at the beginning there, I was like, they're making us not even each other's auric field. Like there's like an auric field break, and like people who had strict families, they were doing it to their own family members in their own home. And I was like, wow, this is actually like some kind of miracle. Like people are getting some type of auric break for the first time, and permission and like an opportunity to give themselves that boundary. And it probably was so healing on like, it blew me away truly. And then as soon as I was starting to get into people's auras again, I was noticing right away when they were sick. Like I could tell how, and it was even further away at that point. And I was just like skirting around people even wider after that point, because I had even gotten better at that. And it was so cool because I was really feeling for, you know, people who live in abusive households, you know, people who are extremely triggered by each other in their own bloodline and for karmic reasons, blah, blah, blah. You know, we all are a piece of the puzzle. And giving them that break and that peace. And I think we had like a huge jump in maturity through just those like few weeks, because they only really got people to be serious for like the 2 weeks, the 14 days.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
then everyone's like, WTF, like trying to go back to the bar, like what's going on? Or, I'm not me, but that used to be me, my life, when there was the only interesting thing to do other than study.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I want to shift gears a little bit at this point and do a little bit of chat about neutrinos, because I was doing some research on neutrinos and on some new studies where they're looking for neutrinos coming out of solar flares. And they're trying to track this. And now it intrigues me because how much time do we have? What time is it? I just wanted to check time. Doesn't matter. Anyways. Sorry, I just heard
some pressure.
I just heard the kids felt some
the
pressure.
Timeless neutrinos.
It was the sound of my children that created pressure for me. But so, it intrigues me because if there are neutrinos being produced by solar flares, there are very intriguing implications from the lens of human design, because human design it's all about neutrinos, right? It's all about the extent to which neutrinos are passing through us and the Earth at an incredible scale every second of every day. And that's what is imprinting us and informing us. That's when a transit is coming and shifting things for us that has to do with neutrinos. And so I'm very curious as to whether or not solar flares are also altering the experience of neutrinos for us as human beings on the Earth. And I think science seems to be a ways away from
admitting that.
Yeah, from really discovering this. These are very, very like early studies. But it's intriguing to me. And you were saying that you were looking at a Japanese study of they're collecting neutrinos. What? Tell me. I haven't found that.
This. I forgot the name. Unfortunately, I did just look at it, but there is an underground cylinder. It's like a big cylinder, and on inside of the walls they have these golden reverse light bulbs, they called it. So it was like information goes in and an electron goes out instead of the opposite. And they're the bottom of this thing that's completely lined with these like, I don't know, half orb sort of looking gold bulb things all on the walls. And the bottom is water that's been super purified. And it has a very rare element in there as well that also will basically emit a reaction when the neutrinos are coming into this big cavern, this big tube. Wow. Just going through Earth, like without any sort of resistance, right? It's just, they're just catching them there. And these reactions show up, and all these sensors show a little bit of a response. And they said that they were trying to track basically all of the exploding stars out there and the timing of, mutation and the timing of our universe through these neutrinos and their behavior, which I thought was fascinating. And he was going on about how, yes, there's like billions that are flowing through your body at all times. So we truly are being super informed by this. And they're caused by the breakdown of more heavier particles, they said. So it's kind of like it's a sign of decay, they said. So they're like evidence of decay and of exploded things and of chemical reactions, and that this like sea or this ocean of stuff comes through the stars and our own star, like you said. And there's also one I heard about through one of the whistleblowers making the rounds about a facility in Antarctica called Ice Cube. And they're doing a similar thing, capturing neutrinos there. And then he was implying that they were using it in a way also to almost travel back through the neutrinos or use them as like mini portals basically to that where they had originated or where they decayed out of and stuff, which is cool. And so yeah, this sort of quantum like particle science that they're capturing and observing, it's very necessary to understand, like you said, the gates of our own body, because our planet has its own gates and so on too. It is its own body. and who's activating from what star system at what time space, and what is that specific frequency or signature. Like, does every neutrino have a little bit of a different signature? It seems like that's kind of what they were implying, was that they did. So even though there's billions of them, there seems to be this intelligence amongst them too, which could also explain why they can't explain like dark matter, or like the whereas all this other space and density, like they have mass and everything. And to me it seemed like, oh, it seems like we're mostly just chilling in neutrinos.
Yeah.
And I wasn't aware of that pretty much at all. So I'm glad that you made me research that. And now I'm going to definitely think about that way more, because I'm fascinated and I really want to go to Japan, like super bad. And I just keep getting information about and from Japan lately with all the science too. So I think that they are ahead of us in a lot of ways. And of course, in North America, they never want to make North Americans think that they aren't the cutting edge of everything. And it's like the big psyop, but there is some seriously really profound information in all of this that helps people's souls, I feel like, feel more at home in the system we're in. And that's what I like about human design and all of that we do, is making it more physical, making it more real. Like, we're really physically here. It's being informed all the time. We're mutating all the time to respond to our environment, and we're a piece of these exploding stars. And we're also going to decay and create neutrinos ourselves, I think, from our own bodies. So fascinating stuff. Like, I love it. It just fulfills so much of a hole I feel like I felt going through all of the traditional schooling. Like, where's the soul? Like, where's the life? And it took me forever to find it, but I'm glad I do. And now I'm obsessed with it. And I watch the sun give birth all day long, and how it impacts our planet, the mother who receives it and creates, whatever life with it and experience. And it's a beautiful thing. I'm grateful for the science kind of catching up, and science just proves spirit in a way too. So
Yeah,
we're getting to that
absolutely.
point, and we get to be a part of it. Like,
So successful.
it's cool.
it's truly amazing, because like when human design was first introduced, like
Right.
there's two really crazy things. The first thing is that the information that became the human design body of knowledge came from a supernova. So there was a supernova that went off. It sent this massive neutrinos to Earth. The sort of download of this information imprinted the human population and came through. But
Right.
also, like, so that's all via neutrinos. And what's so crazy is that information pointed to the existence of neutrinos, which had not yet been proven and have now been proven. But
They
so
proved
human
themselves.
design like talked about neutrinos and all of this, but there was no proof of that yet. So we're literally like the whole Earth was drenched in
That's
neutrinos
wild.
from a supernova that taught us about neutrinos. And now we're learning for realsies about neutrinos.
And it took a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it was in the late 80s, and then he compiled the information over several years, so in early 90s. And then sometime several years after that, I think, I don't know, maybe even closer to the 2000s, they proved that neutrinos do have mass. It's just in tiny amount. So yeah, for several years, his download that neutrinos have mass and they affect us in an enormous way. Science just, there was disbelief.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean,
Science
no,
was like, let's go underground and dig a huge thing and spend all this.
Yeah, exactly. Has to be
prove it.
so physical and visible, like,
Yeah.
to catch the thing that is invisible to us.
And neutrally charged as
Yes.
well. So it's like,
Yes.
Yeah.
it's on
exactly.
another level, this stuff, this whatever, this mass that's
Yeah.
flowing through. And it's so weird that it came out of
Interesting.
a star. So obviously they were pros at this particular science there. And they were like, "Psh, here you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Spread the knowledge."
Now you're
It
ready.
worked. Yeah.
It's really crazy. And I think the number that we found the other day, what was it? 66 trillion neutrinos per second per square centimeter on the whole Earth. So every
That's-
second, every square centimeter of the Earth is being hit with 66 trillion neutrinos. That is an unbelievable amount of influence.
Yeah. Yes, I would say so. And again, I had the same feeling after my psych degree, and then learning that the Earth's resonances influences our brain waves in directly. And I was just like, dude, I just paid so much money and like sat through the most boring and read so many books. And this is step one. Like that's step one of our environment. It's coming into the planet, in fact, affects us. But no, we're just going to go from step 10 and be like, oh, you're just depressed because, you're just not feeling it today. Okay, well, here's some pills and here's some heavy metals to eat, and just let those neutrinos bounce right off of your third eye instead of go through and inform us or whatever.
Yeah.
And, since then
parasites.
I've learned.
Yeah, throw some parasites in there. Sprinkle a few parasites.
Go for a treat and eat some McDonald's after your appointment.
Yeah.
Well,
that'll make you feel better.
I think you were talking today about some of the stuff in your class about like dark matter being consciousness itself to an extent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Consciousness comes from dark matter.
Is neutrinos dark matter then?
Yeah.
Or no?
I think that's what's coming about.
Okay.
And because I've seen, I think it was Jordan Sather posted a video the other day that was saying they had like debunked dark matter, but again, this is a term that's very vague. Like what one scientist says is dark matter is not what another scientist says is dark matter. And that's what I like about neutrino science. It's like a hard physical thing where it's like this is dark matter. We found a way to measure it. We're now, apparently in Japan, they're collecting it, which is so amazing. Yeah, and so it's like now we have a tangible way to talk about dark matter, which is the thing that is occupying the majority of the universe, right? It's like,
sounds like it.
We're literally just sort of swimming in a sea of neutrinos. It's like that. I made this post the other day. It was from a song. It was like a quote about fish swimming in water, and then the older fish swims by the fish and is like, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the fish goes, "What the hell is water?" That's us.
Like, hey, everybody, how's the neutrinos today?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. If you were walking down the street and we're like, "Hey, how are your neutrinos today?" What the hell are neutrinos?
We'll just do this.
Yeah. We should make a shirt.
Yeah.
Yes, we have to make neutrino shirts.
Neutrinos.
Yes, that's a great idea.
With a fish.
Yeah. That's so true.
That's amazing. It's so freeing too. Like I feel really lucky that we're in this time where we can do this and have these discussions and find physical evidence as well as all of these corroborating ideas and like other inspired, passionate people who did go by to the rest of their life and go, this is my study, like this matters and I want to pursue this. And I'm so grateful to connect. I want to go there. I really want to go see these things and talk to people. I feel like these people all are under some type of NDA or something. Like they can't just mix with us on social media. Like we're the civilians who got a degree and like barely got taught anything and are just like combing through these specialists who are releasing published things and then hiding wherever they live or work. Just the separation of humanity, of our intelligent people and all these, knowledges is just so sad. And even our differences of languages was really bumming me out yesterday, where I could, literally just be walking around in my own home area and not understand a whole family walking past me, what they're saying. Just that disconnection was just so, it hurt me. I was just like, but I want to be with you. Like, I want to be a part of this. Like empathically, I can get an idea, but I can't hear their jokes. Like I can hear them laugh, but I can't hear why it was so funny. Like, and I feel like that's kind of neutrinos too. It's like they're almost this like underrated, unloved portion of our life and our lifestyle. And that's how I felt about the solar flares too. I felt like there's like love permeating in life and we're just so ignorant to it. We feel alone, we feel unloved, we feel like we have to seek the light even though it's literally passing through our bodies all day. Like it's our DNA is literally light. Like it's just so nice. I feel grateful. Beautiful. Just be like, there's love and light and it's real, like it's physical, go to the machine, look at it. Like it's real. It's so nice.
It's interesting. It makes me think about sort of where human design talks about the human race going. As far as
Okay.
communication goes, because you're talking about the raves and how the new children that are all going to be coming in after 2027, there's going to be this
Right.
capacity to communicate more, like psychically, more emotionally, I think with less language, right? Isn't that the idea, that there's going to be more of a connection in that way, that is literally what the evolutionary leap is going to be. We are, what is it, humans in transitus? So we're like the humans that are bridging, but those humans that come after that, and all these children being born with these new designs, they won't have those moments of frustration that you were just talking about, right? There might not be the same level of language or linguistic barriers, because there's going to be a functionality of communication that's entirely new and that we can't even really imagine.
They talk about this with animals too, that a lot of people are sad right now because the sort of prophecy or whatever is that we just won't want to be around them anymore, because we're going to be very self-focused, not in a way, but actually in a higher connected way. Our solar plexuses will be more emotionally involved and expanded, but pets won't really be a thing anymore. We won't really want them it's just, so people are kind of, us now as humans in transit are going, but we love our animals. We're like so we want to be connected and we want to develop our solar plexuses. That's what we're here for. We're just doing all of this growth. And then, so, the future, they can have a little bit more emotional evolution than we do. We don't know what that's like. I don't want to even let the emotions go, because I love going on emotional roller coasters still sometimes, going to the depths and then having all of this. But I don't know what that would be like, having more emotional connectivity between people without having to necessarily always speak. I don't know what that would even look like.
Can I ask about that?
Different.
Just so different. Yeah, I guess we can't really imagine.
So if the animals all of a sudden are just becoming more conscious enough to become their own, race of people living amongst us, because I'm watching it and I'm like, really? What is going on? Like, yeah, I'm just like, okay, I think we're just going to be a population amongst these guys as well. And humans have really taken over way too much territory, and they need something for their own society to begin developing too, it seems like. And we may be helping them with that, some of us, but I feel that sensation too, where people are like, I don't want to imprison an animal in my home just for whatever. I'm not going to actively ask a breeder for their, to make a batch of these or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
And because that's in my background too, is some animal breeding. And I've had to work that out and understand, what that really means and what is that. And then there's the hybridizing alien races and they're doing it. And you're like, okay, this is a normal behavior, but it has its time and place, like you're saying, and amongst the cycles. And I totally have noticed people being like, I don't want that in my life. I want to watch them outside, free amongst their own peoples, amongst their own environment. And I want to make sure that that's protected so they have their rights and I've got mine. And that makes sense with the solar plexus as well. Because I'll be honest, when I started activating, going to events, my solar plexus was just like doing this crazy thing. It would just turn on and just like be this huge, and I was unstable. Like I could barely handle it and I didn't know what was going on. Now I get it, but it's cool that you said that. So I was just like, does that mean it's 2027, that power or like that is going to keep going and more people are going to experience that sort of sensation?
I don't know exactly.
It could happen.
I mean,
we'll watch it.
We were just looking at your chart and thinking about what you're describing right now, actually.
Because you output an emotional frequency. So like you will... That makes sense that you relate to that because you have emotional energy. And so someone like myself who's undefined or someone who's open are reservoirs for the frequency that an emotional puts out. And so each gate on the solar plexus is a different frequency of type of emotion. So you can go deeper into the particular gates that you have and the channel that you have on the emotional center to find out what kind of wave that you actually emit. So when you move into a certain environment, you'll emit a wave, whether it's healthy or not. is sort of, you have to figure those things out. But you know
Yeah.
how it is being an emotional.
Right.
For Simon, we've had both, right? We've had his healthy emotional waves and his unhealthy emotional waves. And
Yes, I do that.
We
I'm the only
experience
one.
those.
Like
I
you were saying.
experience those very much more in a more amplified way than he would than the carrier would experience it. So so for me, I experienced an amplified version of what he's
so
admitting.
if I'm super frustrated, that can be very intense for Amanda or the kids. So I'm the only emotionally defined person in our family. So I'm generating like emotional waves, and they're receiving it through their open solar plexus, right? And so it's like I'm like the wave pool of emotions in the family, and they're like riding the waves, you know? And like,
so if you think about the population, there's like about roughly 50-50, but we are moving to more solar plexus. So it's changed. Even in the last 20 years, it was a little bit more undefined solar plexus. Now we're about even 60% of the population is defined.
Fascinating.
So there's a lot of emotional outputting waves being put out by people like you and Simon and everyone else. So it's more the majority of the people now emitting emotional.
That's why they invented social media. So they were like,
yeah,
permeate your wave away from people where they can only handle it if they want with their consent.
Out of aura,
yeah, out of the aura, exactly. And I do feel it. And I was wondering too, like, is it being around other people that activates this, you know? And it was only the people in this community. It was strange too. So that was also more like, okay, soul family things, you know, genetic things. I was having those questions.
Yeah, possible, for sure possible.
I still have those questions sometimes where I'll get into that group and then ding, like one of my, you know, areas will turn on and I'm like, whoa. And then I'm just running this energy field and I'm like, okay, well, hopefully I can handle this and hopefully I don't freak anybody out. I'll just go ground in the dirt. I'm just going to go sit over there in the dirt. And that's what I usually end up doing. So it's hard to even be in those conference rooms and stuff too, because it's just like
it's very intense.
A lot.
Yes,
but I
very,
bet
very intense.
It is. It's like, how do we even make events now to be thoughtful to defined and undefined people and like where we can all share the auric field space, but no one's getting cooked.
That's right.
I think we're experimenting with that now for sure.
Yeah, that's the future, I think.
I think
that's where we're going with it as well. But experiment. I think that's the only thing you can do is experiment with it.
It is fun.
And
make podcasts.
Make podcasts.
Make podcasts. Yeah, it's true. And well, like think of an event that actually utilized solitude and played with solitude and group connections.
That'd be great.
Right? Like it's true. Like there's a lot that can now be played with this knowledge expanding, and human design is blowing up right now. So, you know, this really is like moving through the human population quite quickly, it seems. You know, for example, I was looking for human design groups on Telegram, and for a while, all I could find was European, like it was like Russian and German human design groups. I couldn't find any English-speaking human design groups. And then all of a sudden, one finally arrived, and now I'm watching it grow. And so you're like, you know, really seeing it expand in real time. And, you know, I think what's most exciting about that is that this is for the kids. This knowledge is for the kids. It's for them to live their design. All of us adults, like, we're going to have to work our butts off to really actually try to experiment in the direction of our design. And go
our responsibility is our own crap.
Yes, exactly. But they can be raised, they're born in their design, and we can guide them to maintain their connection with who they truly are. And that's so like cool. It's so exciting. It's thrilling. Like I think about it all the time. Sometimes I just stare at our family charts and I get overwhelmed by the implications of them having this knowledge integrated as adults.
Yeah.
And what that will really mean, because, you know, when the coolest thing I think about human design in comparison to old sort of spiritual teachings and new age teachings is that it gives you decision-making capacities, that everyone has a unique strategy and authority. So for example, you and I being emotional beings, we have to learn to wait for our emotional wave before we make a decision. And that, you know, takes a lot.
No spontaneous decisions.
And, you know, I realized how much spontaneity I was living from and how wrong that was for me and how my spontaneous decisions were leading to chaos because I wasn't waiting to ride my emotional wave until it came to its conclusion so that the choice was clear. And that's the other crazy thing, is that once I started to practice decision making from human design, there's a lot of clarity. When I wait for an emotional wave to complete, then it's very obvious what decision needs to be made. There's almost no question a lot of the time.
I
It's
see.
crazy.
So the emotion has to come and go, and then we know what we're doing.
Yes.
My mom used to say, "Sleep on it, Alexis,"
That's
and I'd be like,
exactly.
That's the mantra of the emotional authority, is
Yeah.
sleep on it. It actually
Yeah.
is. It's crazy, right?
"Yeah,
She knew.
I
You
know
what I said?
because
It's
it's
very true for you, but not true for everyone. So for emotional beings,
true."
it's not about being in the moment. We're not in the moment beings. We are actually beings who are spread through time in these wave-like structures, and so we can't make everything about presence. Amanda is splenic authority, so for her, it is spontaneous in the moment. Her authority
Yes.
is actually in the now all the time. So we're totally contrasting beings in that way. So when you think about New Age teachings where it's like, you know, like Eckhart Tolle and like power of the now and everyone needs to be in the now, and like that's really not true for everyone. And if you think of how many people on the planet that should be living from an emotional authority, some of those teachings can be very, very misleading and not true to those individuals. So I think this is a big leap forward from some of the vague ideas that we've been trying to contend with from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah, like the way that we pace ourselves. Everyone paces different, so there's no actual. There's like efficiency doesn't exist in a way. It's and that was hard for me as well, you know, because I needed that extra time and to process the emotion first and then make the choice. Like you said, there isn't always time in our reality for that. It's like, do it now, do it now. And oh, that was awful. And it's so much better with the kids, like just to give your child the patience that their process needs is going to give them that tool to, you know, navigate their lives instead of just, you know, chasing after and letting your emotions go to ruin and not respecting them either as well. And then knowing that some people don't operate that way and how to team up and cooperate in an efficient way to like cover all your bases. You can be like super awesome teammates. And I think that's probably why we're being called to gather so much and like be in groups and group chats and stuff, because we really need all those like different perspectives and paces so we can be efficient and like always on it. Someone's always on it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you find that you have many people that come to you with their children or anything that's going on? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel even if they don't want their kids in the session, it's like they're breaking down the doors and like busting in and putting their face up against the webcam, like, who is that? And even animals too. And so
Wow.
it's, yeah, the people who are trying to get their private space, you know, and then like these people coming in, I got to look that one up for myself too. Like, why am I attracting these intrusions as well on my own peace with my family? And how do I tweak that better? Because I get emotional about that.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to, because, you know, then you see people who never get emotional and they're like, stop being a baby. And you're just like, ugh, like, what do I do? I don't want to be a baby. Like, that's not the plan, you know? And I struggled with that forever. It was so tough. But then people were like, oh, you're an empath. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, that helps. But now I know more. Obviously, this is even more constructive than that. It's way more constructive. And there's so many gates. Like, people don't know if they don't know. Like, there's all these different pathways that go into each of the organs or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
That part was confusing to me. I didn't
Yeah,
get
it's
that
so
for a long
unique.
time.
So unique.
Yeah, Amanda's going into a course at some point to study the biology of the gates and the chakras, right? I mean,
That's awesome.
It's crazy. And each gate, like, you can go so deep on each gate. So it's like you have a chakra that's surrounded by gates, and you can zoom in on that gate, and like, how many layers are there to the
gate, line, color, tone, and base? And so it's the neutrino passing through your body. So it hits base first, tone, color, line is exit frequency. So you have everything underneath, which is not really accessible to you, but you can mentally know it, but it's just there driving you anyway. So you have no
Mhm.
control over it. It's just, you might understand yourself better. But it's your motivation, and it's like, you might be like, why do I keep like ending up, like you're saying, in these situations? And there's like something underneath it all that is not really actually accessible to us. Same like you were saying with the body, right? We can't
Right.
really control what's going on with the body unless we're sort of adding health to our life. But our
Mhm.
body is our body at the pace that it's going with whatever it comes in with.
Yeah, no matter how much your mind,
Yeah.
and then your mind starts to fight your body, and then you hate yourself,
Yep.
and then, ugh,
Yep.
it's awful.
Human design calls it a forced marriage, because in human
Okay.
design there's two charts, there's not one. So astrology, you get one chart, right? Human design, there's
Right.
two. There's your personality, which is the imprint that you got when you were born, and then there's the design, which is your body, and that's the imprint that you got 88 degrees before you were born, about 3 months before you were born. So you have this
Wow.
body, totally different, personality, totally different, and then they become the quantum chart. And so you have a forced marriage of two things that are just on totally different zones. What your personality is what you thought you were, or thought you were, and then your design is something inaccessible to you. It's your vehicle, it's your body. So you're right, absolutely right. There's this like mind body fight.
Yeah.
And I think I relate to that too. There's like this internal struggle where you're like, my body's not going where my mind wants it to go, and there's a fight. And
Yeah, I'm almost trying to explain sometimes to my mind, like, look at this gate. It says mutation on it. And this one says, like, I don't remember, it was like sporadic things or like great changes or something. I'm like, so you just have to deal with that, because that's going to keep happening to you. Like, you're going to
Yes.
keep mutating.
yes.
You're going to keep blah, blah, blah. Just like log that in there. So when it happens, you'll be like, oh, it's just my beautiful choice that I made 88 degrees before I was born. So
Yes.
it's all good. I love that about myself, and thank you.
Yeah. Love
So
yourself. Love yourself.
it helps. Yeah, I think these modalities have certainly helped with self-love, and like in a healthy way, not just like
Yeah.
the toxic, paint
Yes.
on the face, like we were talking about with spirituality, like all these models, too many models. So what are you going to model next? Oh, crystals. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
True.
want people to look at me, but I don't know what to talk about. So, and I've noticed that a ton. It's been tough, but I want people to be fulfilled. And if, whatever it is they pick up to talk about or do or mutate through, that's fabulous. But I want to give people more opportunity to match what they chose for their own soul, like when they did come here. And it's cool that that they've decided that that's the time when the body's imprinting, and then there's the person coming in after, whatever. Fascinating. It's just so helpful, I feel like.
Yeah.
I can't
Incredibly
wait.
practical. Incredibly
I
practical.
gotta learn more.
So I think we're coming to the end of our time here now.
Okay.
Our children need to be tended to. Our little our our little creatures, we need to go guide them in their design. They've been out of aura for long enough.
Out of ours. Yeah.
They're evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're down
They're
there
evolving.
just in each other's auras, whatever that means. When you have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old just in each other's auras, I wish I could be a fly on the wall of their like total time alone, because it's so interesting, because it's them out of our influence. What does it mean? In the same way that it's super different when they're with just one of us. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So then, before we go, please tell everyone where they can find you and access your services and follow you and support you.
I'd love to. If you are on that trajectory, you can go to ascensiondiaries.com and find all the things you need. And I'm on pretty much every social media. Also, if you're a social media person, if you like to express yourself and need other people who understand you about that particular personality trait of expression, I'm grateful for social media to have that for myself and explore that as well without other auras around me, as we say, and getting that. And even just experimenting now as an adult has been an experiment indeed, because I really just never got that chance as a child to do that type of experimenting. So I'm catching up on all of it now, but it's helping a ton of other people catch up. And that's the therapeutic side of the diary. So putting myself out there and making it a diary format has given people permission to compare themselves to me without the pressure of me telling them how to live their life. And as well as I can gather an incredible amount of data to help myself understand the world better, but also give people a perspective that I wasn't able to provide, be based off of their own personal experience. So I'm always tracking the space weather. I'd always love to hear people's feedback on my social media posts about how they were affected by the energy shifts that were coming in. And darn it, do I ever wish I had like a neutrino detector as well as part of my
Yeah.
regiment of like space weather tracking, because wow, I bet you it would be so cool. But if they do come in on solar flares, then I already am tracking the neutrinos.
True.
That's what I was
and
gonna
I'm pretty
ask.
good at it.
Okay.
So
Well, you and I will have to watch
that
that.
makes sense.
We'll have to
Yeah.
watch those studies very closely, and if there is a breakthrough on that, then yeah, you've already been studying human design all along.
I'm being given the pieces. Like, yeah, my mom gave me my
happening.
first human design book, I
Yes.
think back in like 2014, 15. And I was fascinated. No one was talking about that, like
No.
nobody. And so I just kind of packed it away, was like, oh, there's my chart. Okay, I'm going to read about the gates and okay, mutating, blah, blah, blah. That sounds hard. Okay, close that, put that away. And then I mutated and I keep doing it. And now I made a blog about mutation. And I love watching people mutate. It's fantastic. Like, people don't even believe the capacity that they're capable of mutating and changing themselves and how quickly it can happen. Like, we talked about it being slow with the body, but
Mhm.
the body also can move quite fast. Like, these
That's
waves
true.
will come in. People are purging, as the shamans say, both directions and all over the place, and emotionally all the things, and then they're new. Like, it's like all of this density got washed away with all those neutrinos that shot past, and they've got informed by a new thing and they had to match that frequency, and it caused all these shifts. And I'm having the best time. So just
So
come
cool.
along and enjoy my sporadic posting. I have more regular schedule now, and join guardian training if you want, and be even like the closest to me and really get the most out of what I'm doing through my Patreon, Ascension Diaries. You can sign up at any amount right now. And yeah, I think it's coming out of me so fast. It's been really hard to organize. So it's taken me the most time to get that trajectory right. And learning from other people who do it online too has been a huge help. But we're there now.
Amazing.
I feel secure. I'm here as a leader now, as a guide, as a trainer. I'm training the Jedi who want to have more training. Like, you just have to want to. I'm not telling you can't do it yourself. I'm just saying, if you want to do it, I'm doing it every day. I've got the time. Let me lead you, and then you go kick ass in your own spot on Earth and your grid work area, and tell me everything you see. Because, oh my gosh, are we seeing some new anomalies coming through lately in the skies and in everything? I'm pretty sure the whole global grid is physically shifting, and that's why they're also destroying those buildings and those stuff, because it was like holding the grid in a certain shape, and now it's like we're getting a natural grid back.
Oh, you mean
I'm
like the
watching-
Georgia Guidestones and things like that?
Makes
Yes,
sense.
and
Right.
like these churches and stuff and obelisks are like,
Right.
I'm pretty sure it had something to do with, channeling neutrinos even. So
Wow.
fascinating.
Very
And
interesting.
I've got the message December that was over, and that those false things were going to start tearing down. We were going to notice, and it's happening. Like, I got a good message. As a psychic medium, I get those sometimes, and it's like, okay, let's see how that shows up. And it's physically happening.
Wow.
This guidestones thing, I was like shocked. I was just like, is that no way? Like, no way we're getting that satisfaction right now. Like,
Yeah.
are they going to put it up a bigger one? Like, what's the joke?
Yeah.
And so far,
There is some elite guy trying to get him rebuilt. There's some like wealthy anonymous guy like scrambling to try to get
Anonymous.
the Georgia Guidestones rebuilt.
What?
Yeah, I read an article about it. There's truly some psycho elite that's like panicking to get them rebuilt, who's like, I'll pay for the whole thing. But
just
all of that,
realized.
it's not going to work. This shift has too much momentum. It's amazing. It's amazing.
It is good, and people are believing it, which is, I think, the key is with the collective conscious human collective, that 100 monkey effect. Like, 100 monkeys saw those guidestones and were like, wait a minute. And it finally like clicked, and we moved forward a little bit, I feel like. And more people have come to me out of nowhere who literally have just woken up And I'm just like, oh my God, it's happening. Like it's happening. Like people are being freed from their own prison they didn't even know they were in, because it's like electromagnetic grid around them. Like they had no idea and they're born in it. And
Lots
it's just
of
so
guidance is needed.
yeah, a ton of guidance,
You know?
and encouraging more people to speak up and create and just make whatever it is that sprays out of them, because people are so self-conscious, but it makes so many people are self-conscious that they want crazy things so they can be validated for their own crazy wacky styles. And then we're going to see even more crazy wacky stuff, like when all the solar plexus people are coming out. Like what is that really going to be like? It's just going to be
Who
like
knows? Yeah.
it's going to be a wild party of personalities, and I'm seeing it already and enjoying the crap out of it. I'm having so much fun with it. So yay.
So
Yes,
glad.
if
Right
come
on.
along
I
and
love
join
it.
me. I'm an open book and I love bringing people in, and you're welcome with me. Ask me anything you want. I'm here for it. So yeah.
Amazing.
So great.
That's
Well,
my
congratulations on
Thank
really
you.
finding your calling, and
Thank you.
thanks for joining us on the show. You know, we'll have to
It's
do it
great.
again. Really that was
Yeah.
a superb conversation.
You guys have to come visit me soon.
I know.
Ooh, sure.
I think we should. We
That's an
should.
invitation.
Let's
Okay.
get in aura. Woo!
Yeah, come into my aura. Let me show you. I'll show you to my Sasquatch neighbors.
Ooh. I want to
That'll
be
be
in a
fun.
Sasquatch's aura.
Yes, right?
Yes.
Ooh.
They're
Oh, no,
funny
man doesn't
about
want
it.
that.
They don't show up anyways. They're just there, but you don't see them.
It's all right.
You just gotta take a picture at night, then you'll see them.
Awesome.
That's what I figured out.
Oh, good. You've
Yeah.
got Sasquatch intel.
I do. I have been gathering the intel
Good.
and lots of beings and stuff. It's just, are they getting their solar plexus? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
good
going
question.
On there?
Good question.
these are the questions
Do
I
they
have.
have 9 centers, or are they less than 9?
Yeah, are they 9-centered beings?
Maybe
Yeah.
they're 5-centered because they're more like animals.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Or they got like 30.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we'll all go do
Okay.
some digging about Sasquatch chakras, and then we'll come back for another episode.
Thank you. I would appreciate that.
All right, well, lots of love, and thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Lots of love. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.